Hey everyone, so I am finally live. It took me a few minutes because I couldn't connect to my computer, so I have to use my phone. So I apologize for that. Anyways, I am Kristin Bartzokis, and I am the first contributor to this beautiful In My Own Words. So first, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. I am 34 years old. I am 34 years old. I live in Florida. I grew up in South Florida. And I have Treacher-Collins syndrome. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. But basically it just affects the formation and development of the facial bones and tissues. So because I grew up in South Florida, my doctors were all in the Miami area. So if any of you are down there, I went to Dr. Wolf, and he is right now at Miami Children's Hospital, even though I know it's not the name anymore. But let me just tell you a little bit more about me that is not part of my syndrome, because really that is just a minuscule part of me. I was an athlete when I was a kid. My parents basically never set limitations on me. So if I thought I could do something, all I had to do was try. And so I believed I could accomplish anything. So I was an athlete, specifically a gymnast and a soccer player. I even played hockey for a little bit, which was fun. And I have always loved to write. So even when I was a kid, that's one of the things that I have always done. So my friends and I, we would make short stories, like scary stories, and I have a picture book from when I was on vacation with my grandparents. So really that has just always been a part of me. And about 2.5 years ago, I started a blog called, well, at the time it was something else, but then it morphed into Diary of Beautiful Disaster, because I really wanted to open up to people, which I really had never done before as far as my syndrome goes. So I really wanted to open up and just be vulnerable and be honest with people. So my blog it does pertain a lot to my syndrome and how I feel, the different things that have affected me over time, but it is also just a blog about myself. So about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was approached by a publisher asking me if I wanted to turn my blog into a book, basically. So my book, Diary of a Beautiful Disaster, was launched on March 21st, I believe. So it is out now. And I'm going to read an excerpt from it. And I chose this particular piece because it's from a chapter called Fighting Insecurities. And insecurities are something that we all have. It doesn't matter if we have a facial syndrome or a disability. Everybody is insecure about something, so it's very relatable. So let me get this open. Alright, so sorry, I was trying to log on live from my computer, and I was having issues, so my setup is a little different than I'd like. Alright, and again, this, I apologize, I have really bad eyes, so I hope it's not too bad. So, I used to wonder why a person would willingly undergo plastic surgery to transform a face that, in my opinion, was already ideal. There was so much beauty in the world that people looked to alter, to improve. I used to believe I would never willingly choose to undergo surgeries if I didn't have a facial deformity. But as I grew older, I began to understand. I developed the habit of spotting the flaws too. I sought out my visible imperfections and amplified them. I brought them into focus and kept them in the center of my thoughts until I changed them with my doctor's help. Even after I changed them, I always found more. I created a negative voice in my head telling me that my reflection needed to be improved. There was no way I would ever completely be free from my syndrome, yet still I sought unattainable perfection. I continue to pinpoint these imperfections even today. Some are so minor that only I notice them. When I smile, one eye opens more than the other. I detect that unevenness in photos all the time. There's a dimple on my right cheek below my eye and a depression under that cheek that I would love to fill. My top lip is extremely thin, which is why I never wear lipstick to draw attention to the area. In the mirror, my eyes zoom in on the unevenness of my eyebrows, the asymmetry of my jaw, and the barely noticeable depression on the tip of my nose. I see these flaws, and I constantly compare myself to others without a syndrome, though I know I shouldn't. I know that's not healthy. But these imperfections are my own. As often as I wish I could change every little blemish, I understand that will never happen. I think I'll always notice the little details that others might not, but I have to realize that those details make me uniquely Kristin. My story might be unique to me, but my struggle with confidence is universal. We live in a society in which the quest for perfection works on overdrive. Beauty is subjective, but everywhere I look, I'm told how to rid myself of imperfections that other people call out as flaws. Our culture promotes unblemished skin, chiseled features, and thin figures. I'm forced to compare myself to a minuscule percentage of the population that fits that mold. How can I have confidence if I know I'll never reach these ideals? How can anyone? When I was about 13, a relative took me for my first makeover. I felt so amazing sitting on the stool as the makeup artist applied every product imaginable. My face was caked in foundation and powder, a sensation I couldn't get used to. I thought for sure my scars would be hidden under all that goop. She brushed the blush over my cheeks, and I sensed the chiseled appearance of cheekbones forming. She swiped eyeshadow on my lids, outlined my eyes, and lengthened my lashes with mascara. Surely, I thought, my eyes were going to be formed into more symmetrical oval shapes after all this makeup. Lastly, she applied a bright red liner and then lipstick. I hoped this would plump up my top lip. After the artist applied all of the makeup, she held a mirror in front of me. I was so eager to see my reflection. I must look like a rock star wearing all this makeup, I thought. But as she flipped the mirror around to face me, I stared back into the reflection of a clown. My appearance hadn't improved. It had actually worsened with the various layers of product. The bright lipstick highlighted my thin upper lip. It didn't subdue it. My eyelids appeared even heavier with the dark eyeshadow, and the eyeliner only emphasized the odd shape of my eyes. The sloppily applied pink blush drew attention to my underdeveloped cheekbones. I wanted to jump off that chair and run home as quickly as I could. I was so embarrassed. Despite everything in my life, I had never before been ashamed of my appearance. Not until looking at my reflection that day. I know I shouldn't have thought makeup would diminish the traits of my syndrome, but because it helped emphasize everyone else's attractiveness, I thought it would improve mine. I was only 13, a teenager. I still had a long road of reconstruction ahead of me with the most impactful procedures in the near future. At that age, I was confident in myself as a person, but not in my looks. I know I would one day learn that the less is more approach to makeup works best for me, but at that time I felt so betrayed by these products that were supposed to improve my appearance. They did nothing but draw attention to the very features I hoped to hide. If I continued to compare myself to everyone I knew, all the actresses I saw on TV, and the models in the magazines, I would never learn to appreciate my own beauty. Despite everything, I do love the person I've become. My traces of Treacher Collins have diminished with each operation. I'm proud of the changes. I'm proud that after everything I've been through, I can still walk through life with a smile on my face. Yes, it has been rough, but my surgeries helped improve my self-confidence, even if they did also cause me to be more critical of my imperfections. I'll no doubt continue to find faults, and my insecurities will never disappear completely. But each day, I'm learning to grow more and more comfortable in my own skin. It's a continuous learning process and an obvious challenge, but one of these days I will fully embrace the effects of my syndrome. And even if I do struggle to accept all of my imperfections, I will never quit showing the world the beauty that someone with a facial abnormality can possess. Oh, thank you, Lynn. So that was my part of my chapter, Fighting Insecurities. So I would be happy to take any questions that you may have. We can do that for a few minutes. And just to give you a little insight into what it's like to write a book, I work a full-time job, and I wrote this book in about less than 4 months. So coupled with my job, I spent every waking free moment working on this book. So it was a labor of love. So what was the most difficult part of writing your book? Funny, it was not getting started, because with my blogs, I already kind of had an idea of what I was going to write about, and I already had an outline. So that actually was not that hard. What was difficult was making sure that my thoughts were cohesive, and I'm so used to writing short 500 to 1,000 word blog posts. So to make it a 50,000 word book, it's a different process. So you really have to write differently. And for me, the toughest part was learning how to write that way. I did not have a trach. So I have a moderate form of TCS. And so one of the things that I didn't need, I was able to breathe on my own, so I never needed the tracheostomy tube. But I did have a cleft palate, which is completely different, but I did have a cleft palate. And so that was my very first surgery. No, and I did have, when I had my jaw surgeries, or at least my first jaw surgery and then the distraction, it definitely helped open up my airway. So even though I could breathe on my own, I never realized that it was difficult. And especially at night, apparently I would stop breathing. My parents told me that, years later, I would stop breathing. So once I had my jaw surgeries, it was actually a lot better. I no longer snore. I no longer breathe through my mouth. I actually breathe through my nose. So that really changed my whole life. Thanks, Tina. Oh, yeah. Please post a bunch of questions. Yeah, Tina, I've had 10 surgeries, so my appearance has definitely improved over the years. I do have pictures in my book, so you can kind of see the process. My book actually starts at birth. It's basically a birth to life thing, so the way it's laid out is it's in 2 different types of chapters. We have the actual, chapters with each surgery. So it's a detailed account of each surgery from my parents' perspective when I was young, and my perspective when I was old enough to remember, in my teens. So my mom actually kept a journal when I was younger, and my dad, he wrote me a few letters over the years, so I was able to use both of their thoughts and actually combine them into chapters, so that was really cool. So it starts at birth, and you do get a sense of kind of what my parents had to go through in the 80s, not knowing, it wasn't, information about Treacher Collins wasn't readily available, wasn't necessarily well known. So you really get that sense in the book. And then obviously the book goes until today. So I didn't even mention this, the other chapters of the book are this select either values or just like I talk about my strength, the things that really made me or still make me who I am, whether it's my strength, my growing up believing that my life was unlimited, to my insecurities like you just saw, and to dating. So each chapter is a little bit different, and it kind of really gets you to understand what it's like to be someone with a facial abnormality. And it's not everybody's experience, obviously, it's only my experience, so we each have a different story to tell. Sarah, I know you have more questions. Can you tell us a little more about your publisher? Yep, Sarah shared the link so other people can read it. So my publisher is a fairly new publisher. They have been around for, I guess, maybe like a year and a half. They're called KaiCam Publishing, and they do specialize on these stories that motivate and uplift. They definitely tell about people's various struggles and kind of how they overcame them. So obviously each book is a little bit different. There's Kylie Brookbank wrote the first book, and it is actually about, she's a survivor of a house fire, and so she was badly burned. So she had the first book. There is one about a woman who grew up with a father who was an addict. Another couple wrote a book, and they went through a whole bunch of negative experiences in their life, and one of them, it was the loss of their infant son. So each story is different, and if you are interested, you can go onto their website. If you just Google KaiCam Publishing, it'll come up, or KaiCam Projects, it'll come up, and you will be able to kind of submit an idea if you have one. And they do, it's still a publishing company, so they are still looking for people who know a little bit about writing. So just keep that in mind, that they don't accept every submission that they get. But they are more than willing to review submissions. So if you have a story, definitely submit it. Is it rude? Oh no, I'm 34. That's not rude at all. I feel like I'm still 22, but I'm 34. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? So it's going to be backwards, because this is why I want it to be on my computer. But this is my book, backwards. So I apologize for that. What has been your favorite part of releasing your book? I just have loved the people that I have been able to meet. I have been able to give speeches. I spoke at my former gymnastics place when my book launched. That's where I had the book party, and so that was fantastic. I'm just loving being able to spread the message of acceptance. to everybody, not even people who have craniofacial differences. Literally, the message is for everyone, because we all deserve to be accepted for who we are. It doesn't matter what circumstances we have in our life. So that is one of my favorite moments. Plus, I loved meeting Chris and Alyssa from Special Books by Special Kids. They're fantastic people, and I'm so jealous that this is what they do for a living. They spread the message of awareness and acceptance. So that is high up there on my list of favorite parts of being an author. Thanks. I love that video too. Does anyone else have any more questions? I will gladly take them. And if not, what would you tell a younger person about growing up with Treacher Collins? Honestly, that don't let your difference define you, because, you know, it's you are a human being. It doesn't matter what anybody says or how many times people stare at you. You are a human being. Just be yourself. People, stay positive. Honestly, like, look at the positive sides in your life, because there are positives. Excuse me. There are positives, and when you look at the bright side of things, it really does have the ability to change everything. Change your mindset, change your life. People look at you differently when you are a positive person. So that would be my advice. That's my advice for my younger self, or for anybody with Treacher Collins. You know, it's not a curse or anything like that. It's just who we are. What advice would you give to parents of new babies with cranial disorders? Honestly, my parents were the most wonderful parents I could have ever asked for. And you really get that sense in my book. One of the greatest things that they did is they raised me to believe that my future was unlimited. I honestly didn't even realize that I had anything wrong with me. So if you have a baby with a craniofacial syndrome, or even a disability or anything, just make them feel like the future is bright for them. The possibilities are endless, because honestly, if they hadn't taught me that, I don't think I would have thrived. I really did believe that I could do anything, and I still believe that I can do anything, and I owe it all to them. We are so glad to have had the Faces group around for us when our child was born and dealing with her bilateral cleft and palate. You know, Darren, that is, you know, the world today, I don't know what it was like. I don't have a kid. I don't know what it's like now to raise a child with the syndrome, but I'm sure it's a lot easier, because you do have these resources like the Faces community. My parents didn't have anything. I didn't meet anybody with Treacher Collins until I was probably in high school. And it just happened to be in the elevator at my doctor's office. These kind of support groups weren't necessarily, I mean, they may have been around, but my parents didn't know about them. And honestly, I think they did a really great job raising me without them. But it would have been a lot easier for them to kind of had someone in the same situation to bounce ideas off of, bounce fears off of, and just, it would have opened up a whole different world for them. So you are definitely lucky to be in this time with the to have these groups available to you. Plans for another book. I would love to write another book. I just don't know what I want to write about. So if you guys have any suggestions, I'm all ears. Give them to me, because I love to write, and yes, I definitely want to write another book. I have ideas for fiction, but I do want to write more nonfiction as well, so I need some of those. Alright, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can tell you about the book. Oh, I could see one about a gymnast. Yep, how has that athletic background motivated you on your daily life? Well, gymnastics really was the very thing. Of course, my parents always told me that I could achieve anything I ever wanted, but gymnastics was the very thing that showed me that that was true. So it's funny, like, it's really good of you to ask that, because it was how I learned about confidence, I think. So the first year that I was a gymnast, I was not very good. I spent summers in computer camp instead of practicing. So by the next year, like, I really wanted to be the best, and I really wanted to win. And so I put my heart and soul into practicing. And when that competition season came around, I was literally unbeatable. I won every single competition that year. And in my very last one, I won every single event and the all-around. But I was the first person in the state of Florida to receive a perfect 10 in a competition. So that right there, that showed me that, even though I was imperfect in some way, I could achieve perfection, and that basically shaped the rest of my life, because that is when I knew that I could show the world that I could be the best at anything I put my mind to. So gymnastics is honestly what made me the person I am today. Lynn, how do we buy the book? You can go to Amazon. That is probably the easiest. If you just look up Diary of a Beautiful Disaster, or my name, you will find it in Amazon. It's also on barnesandnoble.com, and my publisher's website, KaiCam Projects. So either one of those. Also, you could go to my blog, Diary of a Beautiful Disaster, and there is a shop tab. You can buy it that way too. So there's lots of different methods. And if you want, can I post? Maybe I'm gonna post it in here in the comments section once I'm done. Kristin, thank you so much for working with us on the project. You have been an ideal launch partner, and we're going to keep the video up so more people can watch it. Awesome. So thank you all for being here. This was so much fun. So anytime, anyone, please friend me on Facebook. Look for Kristin Bartzokis. Add me as a friend. Like my author page. Either way, just so we can stay connected. You can keep up what's going on in my life, and anytime you need anything, just reach out. I'm here. I love to chat. So all right, guys, have a good night, and if I don't talk to you, have a good weekend. Bye, guys.